All right, welcome to this brand new project and lesson here where we're going to continue learning more about the fundamentals of GSAP tweens. Okay, so let's refresh this and I'm going to show you what the end result is. This is our goal. This is what we want to create. As we can see, we have these three images kind of sliding in sequentially, a stagger animation. And then after they slide in, we're actually going to use a onComplete callback to call a function that will then run another animation which begins right at the end of this one right here, where you see the type fall in and also the background scales down slightly. We'll watch it one more time. Here's the first animation, callback for a new function that runs another tween that moves these other elements in. So we're going to learn actually about three different new things in this lesson. The first one is going to be stagger. And the next one after that, or actually the first one is going to be set method. And then finally, we'll also learn how to call functions on complete to make these more dynamic. Okay, so let's talk about the HTML markup real quick. It's actually pretty simple. We have an entire section that just houses the entire gallery. We have a div class of mask. Each one of these, we've seen this technique before where we just put overflow hidden on the mask element and then we can make things move in and out, so to speak. We also have an image here. These are in just the regular root folder right here. These are from unsplash.com. And then finally we just have a paragraph. These are just for little titles basically. The Sass right here, there's nothing too crazy happening. There's only a few rule sets. I'll let you look at that as you wish. There's nothing too crazy happening here. The paragraph element, you can see we have a transform of translate -50. That just centers it vertically and horizontally. But anyhow, nothing really special is happening here. So we have our GSAP import, and let's get started with the very first thing that we're going to learn, and this is something new. We're going to use the set method. All right, so the set method is something that you may use quite frequently, and it's basically the same exact thing as the from method or the to method, except it's with a duration of 0. All right, so you use set instead of that, because you could use from and just use a duration of 0 if you wanted, but set allows you to quickly set properties once that call is initiated. In this case, since we're running this on page load, if we put it right here, gsap.set, it's going to run that instantly to set the CSS properties of your target element however you want them. So it's just another way to set your positions and your various CSS properties. So we're going to set the images. So the image tag. So yes, in this case, it would be kind of like an array. Because there's multiple images here. There's 3 different image elements. And so we can certainly specify multiple elements. And in this case, they'll be treated like an array. I also wanted to point out that here in this first parameter, if I zoom up, you'll see we can also put multiple elements. So if we wanted to select maybe perhaps an H1 element, and then maybe we'd also want to select a span element. We can do so in this manner right here through an array, just to let you know that. So we're just going to specify img to select all images, and then we're going to set the y% to -100 because we want those to hide. We want them to be all the way up at the top outside of the mask, because remember, each one of them has a mask. So if we save this and I go back to our actual regular project, we'll see we have the type here still, but the images themselves are gone. So we're going to do the same thing with the actual images as well, except we're not going to use y%. We're going to go ahead and specify opacity 0. So if we save that, we'll see now we see nothing at all. Okay, that's exactly what we want. So now, next up, what we're going to do is we're going to make all those images slide into place, and we're going to do it in a staggered manner. And it's so simple, it's just simply one property. So we're going to say gsap2, we're going to say img, quit reading my mind, GitHub Copilot. We're going to say y% 0, all right, because remember, we're setting it initially with -100. We're also going to specify a scale of 1.3, so we can enlarge things easily by a factor, from all the way from 0 to plus, anything beyond. And I think we want a little slight delay before this triggers. So we'll just use 0.5, which is a half second. And I think we're pretty good right there. If we save this and we come back, notice how they all fall into place. That's because we have not used the stagger property. So if I go back, I put stagger, and then we'll put stagger just maybe at something like 0.1 seconds. Notice how they come in with a 0.1 second delay between each one of them. Very, very, very cool. So stagger animations are something you're going to be using a lot of. We're also going to specify in here an ease, power 4 out. And that just kind of makes the animation a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more interesting. It comes in quicker, that's for sure. We can always take the duration and say maybe 1.5. There we go. It's nice and smooth right there. And then at the same time, at the end of that animation, we want to have another animation that fires thereafter. And there's multiple ways of doing this, but I just wanted to show you this way of doing it. And so what we could do is we can say on complete, and then we can call our own function. So we're going to say scale down and fade in. And you'll see kind of what that means here in a second. So this is a function call right here, and this means when this is completed, when this animation completes, we'll call this function. So let's go ahead and define that function as scale down and fade in. And inside of here, we just put a GSAP2. So we'll say image, the scale will be 1, and we're just going to say duration 2. So watch what happens here now. Comes in, and there you go. It scales down the image back from 1.3 to 1. Very, very nice. Outside of that, we can also say something like GSAP2. Now we're going to take our paragraphs and we're going to fade those back in. So we're going to say opacity 1 and Y50, which means we'll move it down. We're going to stagger them because there's 3 of them. So we're going to stagger them at like 0.3, and we'll give it a duration of 2. So we'll save that. Let's check it out. Calls the function, and they all fade in. This one's white because I set that in CSS, by the way. So this here is very, very cool. Now, I kind of lied about one thing. I said we're going to learn 3 new things, and we did. We learned the set method. We also learned on complete. And we also learned that we can use stagger in order to stagger our elements based on how many are found. We can do something else, and that's called fromTo. So there's to, there's from, there's also fromTo. And fromTo is typically not used quite as much as those two. Let me go ahead and get this over here. There we go. But I did want to show you what that looks like. So, for instance, if we comment this code out right here, let me go like this. There we go. I do not want arguments in there. Okay. So what we could say is we could say GSAP fromTo. This is what that method looks like. We'll take our paragraphs, and in this case, we have an extra object parameter. And so the first element that's within these squiggly braces, the object, is the from. So we can actually set both the from and the to properties of a single element. So for instance, say we want to do a negative or a y of negative 50 pixels. All right. That means that's where it's going to come from. And then we can also, let's move this down. All right. Then we put our from in the next object. So that would be opacity 1, Y50. So it's actually going to travel 100 pixels because it's going from negative 50 to 50. We're going to do a stagger of 0.3 once again, a duration of 2. And just to let you know that this is actually doing something interesting, so it's more obvious, let's do like an x of negative 50 as well. And then we'll say x over here is 0. So we'll save that. Here we go. Notice how they slide in from the left and right. Awesome, awesome stuff. Now, one final thing that I want you to know about, if we could type in GSAP 3 tweens here in Google, you'll find in the docs, there's a huge page on the documentation. This goes on very long, as you can see, but the docs, of course, as they say, are your friend. GSAP 2 from and fromTo, and it's going to give you a ton of examples and all of the cool things you do. You can pause, you can seek, you can choose progress, play, and reverse, which we've already done. Right here, this is going to give you all the special properties that you can use when you're using from and to in the object portion of the code. For instance, like write X and Y. All these things right here, all these properties you can use, and it tells you what they do. Of course, we haven't used anywhere near all of them. For instance, we used onComplete already, which is a function call when the animation is completed. You can do onRepeat. You can call all these, initiate all this interesting code through functions based on these properties, based on what you want to do. So you have a massive amount, here's Stagger, of flexibility. Yo-yo is a very cool one as well, where it will kind of like repeat and reverse your animations. And then also down here, if you scroll down further, you're going to find methods. All right, so the methods are like play, reverse, fromTo, from. So there's a lot of different methods that you can also utilize as well, some of which we were going to use throughout this course.